Hello and welcome back to the Ain't Dead Yet podcast. We have a special guest today, round two.
Yes.
Her name is Olivia Bray. And real quick before we jump back into her story for the second time, I want to thank her and I want to thank the other two guests that have came back and recorded since what happened with the episodes. But I'm so grateful for them to come back and tell their story again. And I think it's impactful because they're not easy stories to tell. They're not easy stories or things to talk about and open up about. And for those of you out there that are listening or watching that have been through any type of trauma or tough event, understand that every time you open that door, if you will, it wakes some things up within you. So I just want to thank you for coming back, telling your story again in order to solely just help people. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for doing this again and reaching out. I think it's really important to just share and just remind others that they're not alone. And if I need to do this 10 times just to help promote that message, then it's definitely worth it.
I love that. And I'm so grateful. Okay, let's just jump right back into it. So for starters, to give her a quick introduction, and it's, for me, the most important part of what she does is her advocacy for mental health and her advocacy to help others. I think that that's what separates you and makes you really special. And then the other really cool thing amongst many about you is she's also a 20-time All-American collegiate swimmer at the University of Texas. And I think that that's incredible and unheard of. I played a sport where if someone makes All-American one time, they go down in history and then they're probably in the Hall of Fame and then, their number gets retired. So the fact that you've been that consistent for that long and for a lack of better words, from my perspective, dominant is super impressive. I think outside of those things, there's one more thing that's pretty cool about our connection that's really rare. So we're in Austin, Texas right now. She came here for swimming at UT. I came here the second time, came back for my own recovery and sobriety and to start a new life, if you will. But we're actually from the same hometown. And I didn't know that. I didn't know of her, and I didn't know that fact until she was on someone else's page and she said Roanoke, Virginia, and I about fell out because I've never had the opportunity to meet. You're the first person I've ever met in Austin, Texas, that's from Roanoke, Virginia. It's such a small town in comparison. So, but those are high level things. I really want to dive into the story. And to start it off, can you just give us a little bit of background on, we know where you're from now, but childhood and what that looked like?
Yeah, so I moved to, not technically from Roanoke, but I say it. I'm from Daleville, which is 20 minutes north, but moved there when I was about 3 and with mom, dad, sister, and grew up there until I left for college. I did all of the sports growing up, started swimming when I was 6, which is summer league, which is just in the summer. Loved it so much. I was like, Mom, Dad, I really want to do year-round swimming. It's so fun and I'm good at it. So when I was 8, I started year-round swimming at the club team that I stayed with and just kind of fell in love with it. And when I was about 10, I was like, I think I want to do this. I want to go to college for swimming. And then in middle school, I don't know what age that is, maybe 12, 13?
Yeah, maybe 12 to 14, something like that.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, who knows?
I started morning practice, and my parents and I were like, you just can't do all the sports plus school plus doubles 3 times a week. You're just a kid. And so quit every other sport, dedicated my life to swimming, and that just became my whole focus. And now I'm swimming at the University of Texas at one of the best academic and athletic departments in the country, and about to go into my 5th year of swimming.
So to tag into some of what you just said, to give people an understanding, of what that looks like from a time commitment perspective.
Yeah.
In middle school, once you dropped other sports and went all in on swimming, how many hours a week would you say you were in the pool?
Oh God, let me do some math.
Yeah.
2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18 plus like lifting 3 hours a week.
Yes, we'll call it at least 20 hours of dedicated work. And that doesn't include everything outside of the pool that has to be done in order to get into the pool.
Yeah, I lived 35 minutes away from the pool. So my mom was waking up at 4 a.m. with me, driving me to and from morning practice.
Yeah.
And just like dedication from my parents. And just like looking back, I'm like, I can't believe you guys did that for me. Like, just like the unconditional like love and support that I had from the beginning is just incredible and like not talked about enough, because I can't drive yet. And they were like, you want to do this? Like, you want to take this serious? Like, we're all in for it. And I also think that's just like incredible from that like perspective.
For sure. And to dive into that piece a little bit too, I didn't understand how much time my mom committed to just getting me places until I became an adult.
Yeah.
I had no clue. I'm like, well, what do you mean? We might be late for the game or might be late for practice. Meanwhile, she's working full time and then hustling on the side, selling stuff on eBay, trying to make ends meet. And I never was able to put all that together until afterwards. And then you realize what their commitment was, and it was like, wow, like, one, for me, technically impossible to do or accomplish or be in the place that I got to without my mom committing all that time and effort. And so I think there's so much that goes into somebody being able to get to the next level. High school is one thing, but to go from there to the next level is a little bit of a different story.
Yeah.
And it takes a pretty large commitment of time. And so we'll get into that in a minute. So real quick too, to go kind of into the recruiting process, when like the dream hit, I understand that you're like, okay, I'm going to go to college for this. When would you say like the first exposure to any type of like college program came? Like those types of conversations?
I met my mentor when I was 10 at a swim camp, and she went to Stanford, so I wanted to go to Stanford, and I had that dream since I was 10. And then once the recruiting process started for me as like September, August of my junior year of high school, like just getting like emails from different like colleges, like that just opened up my eyes to just like, wow, there are so many different programs, like different types. There's like combined, separate, D1, D2, T3. And thankfully, like, neither of my parents like went to college for sports, but they both went to college and just kind of like knew a little bit about everything. And so they were really helpful to be like, this is how you want to like approach this, like giving me tips and stuff. But they just kind of like stepped back through the whole process. They were like, this is your life, your dream. Like, you have the reins basically. And I would like go to them when I needed help, or just like advice, because I was just so overwhelmed with like the process. Like I felt like the weight of the world on my shoulders. I was like, this is going to dictate like the rest of my life. Like it just felt like such a big decision. But it was like, thinking back, I wish I like appreciated it a little bit more and was like, wow, like these people want me to like compete for them. They want me to like represent their school and like them. And like, that's such a cool honor and like responsibility. And in the moment I was just like, I don't know what to do. Like, this is so much. But that's also like 16-year-old, like high school girl.
Right.
But yeah, like I had my list of requirements per se, or like things I wanted in a program. And then I only took 3 trips, and one of them was like unofficial, and just kind of like Texas was my second trip. And I just like plane landed in Austin, and I just like had that gut feeling. I was like, crap, this is where I'm going. Like, cancel everything else. Like, I need to be here. And like having a women like head coach was just like incredible to see as like a young girl, and like she's such a badass. Like she's such a good role model for us, and just hearing like what they want to do and like what they want to accomplish, and then also having like the academic side, and like University of Texas is one of like the best in everything, and it just kind of felt like the best of both worlds, like on paper, and then just like the team environment and just like the culture and like what the coaches like wanted to do and wanted to accomplish and like how they wanted to accomplish it. I was just like, this is where I'm going. Like,
yeah, there's a lot in that too. So the plane landing and you getting that gut feeling.
Yeah.
I had that same experience. Like the door opened. I remember, that's what I remember about it. The plane landed, we pulled into the gate, and the door opened, and like it was like different air hit me that I'd never experienced. Makes more sense now because it's really hot, but
yeah.
but like I think for me when it hit me, it was like, this is where I have to be. I don't know what it looks like or how to do it or what to do, but like it's supposed to be here. And so it's really cool to hear you had a similar experience. I think that for me, that represents like God talking to me. You know, for some it's God or the universe or a doorknob, whatever it is, but like somebody somewhere is talking and saying like, you're supposed to be here. So I love that you had that experience. The academic side to me is kind of interesting, right? Because University of Texas is obviously a prestigious school, not just for athletics, but academics as well. And when I was coming out of high school, going to college, I didn't have a great GPA. I didn't really put a lot of effort in high school.
Yeah.
And when I got to college, it was quite the wake-up call. Like instantly on academic probation the first semester. And I think that there's maybe a lack of awareness that different regions of the United States public school systems differ from other regions, right?
Yeah.
I had friends that came from the Northeast to Kent State and they were fine, right? They had it dialed. They were like, yep, we got to study. This is how I do it. This, you know, and they walk out with a 3.6 or a 3.8 or a 4.0. And like, I'm like, oh, I actually have to like, not just go to class, which I didn't want to do, but also take notes, which I didn't want to do, and then review those notes and then make sure I understand those notes just to show up the next day. So was that a challenging transition for you too?
Yeah. In high school, I didn't try. Well, I also didn't really go to school, which sounds horrible, but I had a 4.0. Like I just didn't have to try. Like it's not good where we lived. Yeah. Like I was just kind of floating along, and like my mom was like, both my parents, they were just like, you get all A's, you don't have to go to school. I was like, great. I'm going to sleep all day because I just came from practice and I got practice in another like 6 hours. And then I graduated a semester early from high school. So I graduated in December 2019 to train for the 2020 Olympic trials. And COVID hit, and then my freshman year was COVID, so it was all online. I've never done online school before. And since it was online, it was like a little bit easier. I was just like, how do you guys do this? Like, I've never studied before. Like, I just kind of didn't even show up in high school, but like, it was just a lot. Like both semesters, freshman year online, and then first semester sophomore year was like hybrid, somewhere online, somewhere in person, and that was even more of a wake-up call. I was like, I don't know how to take notes. I'm like, everything seems important. Like, how do I write down every single thing and pay attention to what the professor is talking about? And then didn't know how to study. And it was a lot. Like, I still learning how to study. I haven't found exactly what works for me. I know like what works a little bit, but not as much as I would like. And yeah, definitely huge wake up call. Like I know like one of the girls on the team, she's from Austin. So she's like, academics is like very heavy here. And she's like, 4.0 student in college. I'm like, how are you doing that? And you're a swimmer. And she's like a neuroscience major. I'm like, you have such a big brain. Like, how do you? And so I like got tips from her, but it was a lot to like not even relearn, but just like learn how to do well academically in like this type of setting coming from such a small place.
Yeah, I think I didn't realize the differences until I went back home.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to see it, right? It just happens.
Yeah.
And I know you know what I'm talking about, but it's kind of just like, okay, like I see it now. I see the difference. I understand it. And it makes you contemplate, like, one day when you have children, what kind of environment to bring them up in. But it's not like anyone had that awareness or has that awareness when they're parents or when they're doing it, right, for the most part. So no blame there at all. It's just interesting once you go to different places and experience different people and then compare it to where you're from and how you grew up and what that looked like. And it's just a wake-up call.
Yeah.
It's like a big hello, We've talked about kind of academics. We've touched on athletics, and athletics certainly ties back into this story in numerous ways. But I don't think we can go much further right now without kind of kicking back a little bit into the nutrition conversation.
Yeah.
And for those that don't have awareness of this, one of the first things that Olivia kind of faced or dealt with was surrounding nutrition. Mm-hmm. It's also one of the first things you kind of went public with.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that that's an important place to start. And so can you kind of give us like the early details of what nutrition looked like and what that was like, and then we'll kind of dive into the deeper end?
Yeah. So I ate like a normal kid growing up, and then when I was about 6, I just kind of stopped eating different types of food. Not really sure what happened. Still kind of a mystery. But from 6 to 18, I ate 5 foods growing up, literally every single day, every meal, like pizza breakfast, pizza lunch, pizza dinner, and just was kind of labeled like a picky eater for my entire life. Nobody thought anything different. They were like, oh, she's just like picky. She'll grow out of it. Like, don't worry about it. And then it was middle school, still eating the same 5 things. And then it was high school, still eating the same 5 things. And I think in 8th grade, we were just kind of like, nothing's really changing. Like, I didn't want to try anything else. Like, I was very comfortable with these foods. Like, growing up, my mom would try and hide like chicken and like gravy, and I'd like figure it out, and I'd be like, what are you doing? Like, I don't like this. Like, just kind of have like a little tantrum a little bit. And I think in 8th grade, we started doing like occupational therapy, trying to like figure out what's going on. I did like occupational therapy. I did hypnotherapy, like regular therapy, just like met with nutritionists, just like trying to figure out what's wrong. Got labeled like a super taster. And I may never grow out of it. And I was like, cool. But on the other side, like, I was swimming so fast, I did not care.
Right.
I was like, nothing else matters besides swimming. Like, I'm doing fine swimming wise, like I'm getting better, and that's all that matters to me. And then my sophomore year of high school, I gained a bunch of weight, and then at the end of it, got broken up with, started like a hormonal medication, and stopped eating for a month. I had 1 bar a day for 30 days and lost 30 pounds. And that kind of started my like restriction. Wow, words are hard. Eating patterns. So when I would get upset or like stressed, I'd just stop eating. And then that just kind of like continued, still eating the same 5 foods. And then after I graduated from high school, I went to Arizona to like swim and train with my mentor. COVID hit, trials was pushed back a year, couldn't swim, like kind of stuck in Arizona. And me and my mentor were just like doing some research. We were like, okay, like the world is on pause, like everything's on pause. Like this is the perfect opportunity to get better and like try and force myself to like get better nutritionally. And after doing some like research, she was like, I think you have ARFID, which is avoidant restrictive food intake disorder, which is avoidant, which is like picky eating, and then restrictive, which is like not eating as much as you need. And I was like, that sounds exactly like me, actually. And so we just went into some like more research about different like eating disorder treatment centers across the country, trying to find one that had like athletic programs. So, and then I basically checked myself into one May of 2020 and had quite the experience, unfortunately. I was hospitalized for the first time 4 days in with hypercalcium, too much calcium. And then I could do like a whole podcast about my experience. It is so much to go into. But basically, I was only there for about 20 days. I left against medical advice. But I was eating more foods. I tried meat for the first time. I was like ready to get better. And they were basically not treating me for ARFID. They were treating me for bulimia and anorexia and like giving me a plate full of food that I've never seen or heard of before. And that just kind of, I was just like, this is not the right plan for me. Like, this is not the way to go about this for me. This isn't really helping me. Like, I can do this on my own. That's what I told myself. But I also had like the support of my family and friends, and also a nutritionist that I'd been working with for about 2 years. Like, I was like, we need to get me out of here. And so I left after 20 days. The day I got back, my boyfriend broke up with me. And the next week I just went into the restrictive pattern again and like didn't eat for a week. And then I was like, Olivia, wake up. This is not what you went through hell for. And so I like started working more closely with the nutritionist. She also lived in Arizona, so it was like virtual calls, but still better than nothing. And so that week on, I tried 3 new foods a week forever, basically, until I found stuff that I liked, I enjoyed. It took me many different tries to like foods, but I wanted to prepare for college in August because I knew if I stayed the way I wasn't going to survive D1 swimming. And thankfully, my mind was in the right place and I was ready to get better, and I had the best support in the whole world, and added like 50 foods. That might be extreme, but a lot of different foods. Yeah. Like meats for the first time, veggies for the first time, different carbs and like healthy fats, until I probably added that in the first like couple months. And yeah, still, I wouldn't say suffering, but like I have foods that I am scared of. Like I have bad memories of like apples and peanut butter. Like I just don't want to eat them. Like, and that's okay. I can get those like nutrients from other foods, but it's crazy like thinking back to when I just ate pizza and rice for 12 years of my life, and like thinking where I am now, like vegetables, protein, like every meal of the day. And while like when I do get stressed and stuff, like sometimes those behaviors can like kind of creep into the back of my mind. Like I have so many tools in my belt, thankfully, that I can like combat those and just be like, hey, like you're just stressed. Like your mind is racing. Like just take a deep breath, take a shower, like regulate your system and try to stay where you are. Like I always want to be moving forward in like whatever I do. And I tell myself every time I'm having those thoughts, like, I never want to go back to treatment. Like, that was horrible. And like, everything I'm doing for like future Olivia moving forward.
I love that. And I there's a couple things I want to talk about in there before we talk about the first post.
Yeah.
Because I think that that's an important part. But you mentioned therapy while you were still in Southwest Virginia.
Yeah.
And it never hit me until you said that I actually went to therapy once too when I was like high school age. And I remember I went and I talked to this person about what was going on. And it was like, well, you know, we could put you on like Xanax. Like that was like the instant reaction, like one visit in. And I didn't go on it. You know what I mean? I didn't have the awareness to know that I did or didn't want to go on it, but I just didn't. And it reminds me how different my first therapy experience was in a different place, like in Atlanta or Florida or Texas in comparison. And so I think that's a really important thing to touch on really quick. If you are seeking help in anything, it really pays to do some research.
Oh, yeah.
And it sounds like that's what you did, right? And we can get into different experiences. I know that the first experience was tough. But once you have that awareness, you can continue to work at it and find different resources. But I think a lot of people just say, okay, I'm going to try this therapy thing. And they go into it and they have a really bad experience, right? And they never make it back in. And that's unfortunate because there are people out there that really want to help your situation and dive into exactly what your needs are. And it's not this like a broad overview of like, for instance, your example of ARFID and them treating you for something like bulimia. Like they're not the same thing.
Yeah.
Like your body doesn't respond the same. It's completely a different thing. It's like treating anxiety and depression the exact same way. Yes, they're both mental health related, but they're not the same thing. And so I think it's really important to remind people, if you have an experience that's not the best, like, and you're still struggling, please keep trying. Keep trying. And I think that that's something that is cool about your story, that you had the ability to have that experience and say, and then the awareness to be like, oh, it's happening again. And then, okay, I still need to connect with people here and work at this. And I think that's important for people. The other thing that's wild to me, I'll just say wild, right? Not even interesting, it's wild to me, is that you were able to be as competitive and successful as you were on that limited of a nutrition plan. It's pretty unbelievable when you think about it.
Yeah.
And I think that's also an interesting piece to touch on because it also highlights you had to outwork your nutrition, right? You weren't nutritionally like at a peak, right? You weren't fueling your body in a necessary way, but you were working hard enough to offset that almost. And I think that type of drive and that type of focus kind of separates you naturally. And then it's interesting what happens once you start to dive into these other details of things. Like you talked about when you were with your mentor and you couldn't swim. So it's like, okay, how else do I get better at my thing? And it's like, okay, well, this is probably an area to focus on. So that first experience when you're like, okay, I'm going to start trying new foods. Is it fear?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's like the feeling or emotion that elicits when you try new food is like fear from like an anxious place, or like I'm not going to like it, or what's the?
Yeah, it's like hard to describe. It's like a panic fear, like somebody is about to kill you, but it's a food that won't kill you. It's just like before I'd convinced myself that I'm not going to like any other food. So like trying it, I was like, I already know I'm not going to like this. So why am I doing this? Like, it's scary doing something new. And like before I went to treatment, like when I would try new foods or like attempt to try them, like I put them on a plate, I would go upstairs in my room, I would lock the door, and I would just stare at it. And I was like, I didn't tell myself this, but it's like, it's not going to kill me. But it was just like the unknown, I think, was really scary to me. It like sounds childish a little bit, but it was like life or death to me. And I like still don't know how to describe it. I was just like, you're scary, you're new. I don't know what you're going to do to me. I don't know what you're going to like. I don't know the texture. I don't know the taste. Like, too much.
That's the next thing I was going to ask you is, on the outside, it doesn't seem childish to me because I have fears that don't make sense to anyone else. And so I think that each person's perception is their reality and it's very real.
Definitely.
And so I definitely don't want to, I want to acknowledge your fear and never discount it because we all have fears that don't make sense to other people, but they do to us.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you that next question. Was it taste? Was it texture? Was it both? Like, what was the...
It's definitely both.
Okay.
But texture is like the bigger one for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you mind sharing like what textures or what texture thoughts like you don't like in your mind?
Yeah. So mainly like fruits, like the texture of fruits.
Okay.
Like I only like bananas.
Okay.
But I will drink other fruits in a smoothie to where the taste is okay, but the texture I'm like, ugh. Like blueberries, like why are they like juicing in my mouth?
Yeah.
Like I haven't been able to kind of like get over that yet. I've tried them fresh, I've tried them frozen, like there's still, the texture is just like very strange to me. And then that's like the biggest one. Still working on that, but it's definitely like, it's just so new to me because I ate like pizza and rice growing up. Like it's just like opposite textures.
For sure. And for what it's worth, I don't know if this is helpful or not, but like I've been fortunate to always be able to eat most foods. My restrictions were like from 0 to 7 maybe. Like I wouldn't eat cheese. I wouldn't eat cheeseburgers. I didn't like ketchup. Like it was like that.
Yeah.
But it got to a point where it became more open-ended for me. But there are still textures to this day that I'm like, absolutely not. So for what it's worth, like it's okay if that doesn't go away.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to take a spoon to a jar of mayonnaise. That grosses me out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's the texture of it. I don't even want to think about what it tastes like. It's like, why do I want that gob? You know what I mean? It's gross.
Yeah.
It's so gross to me. And I have that same thing with like, I struggle with yogurt sometimes, you know, because of the same texture. It's like, I don't like it.
Yeah. I was eating it today and I was like, I like couldn't think about it.
Yeah.
Like I had yogurt for the first time in treatment and I blame that for my hospitalization. And I couldn't try it for like 3 years. And I finally started liking it earlier this year. Love it.
Yeah.
But today, for some reason, I was like, this is gross. Like, why does it look like that? Like but no, I get it. It's strange. And just textures, I feel like they can like change like instantly.
For sure. And I have moments too where I'll look at something that I typically enjoy and I'll be like, that's disgusting. And it doesn't make sense. I don't know why. I don't know if it's emotion related or what it is, but like I feel you on that.
Yeah.
The other thing too, and I think that there's such an interesting conversation around food because there are so many things that revolve around food that people have challenges with, right? Texture, taste, restrictive, avoidant. For me, it was binge eating, right? Like I ate my feelings.
Yeah.
And I still do. Like I will still catch myself. Yeah. If I'm sad, I'll be like, man, I just want to eat a whole large pizza. You know?
Yeah.
Like that still happens. And I think the key thing is once you gain awareness of it, then what you do in those moments. And it's about what shift takes place there. And I think that I still fail. Like, full transparency. I have moments of like, I'm sad, I want to eat something really bad, and I do it. And I think that that's also important for people to hear. It's not like you fix yourself and then it's just perfect.
Yeah, no, never.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's always work.
Yeah, like when I've gained like the awareness of it, I call it like above neck hunger, when I'm not hungry but like I want to eat.
I like that.
And some days I'm just like having a bad day and I'm like, oh, I could use like XYZ. Like I'm not hungry, I'm full, like, but I need something. And I'll just like acknowledge it. And sometimes I just give in. Like, I try not to do it often, but like some days it's just, it helps me regulate. And sometimes, most of the time I feel really bad after, but it's just like, I made that decision. Like I took it into my own hands and like, it's okay. Like life is going to go on and I'm going to eat like a normal person the next day. And that's took a lot of practice to like not restrict the next day, but like you live and you learn and you just use the tools in like your tool belt and just like give yourself a little bit of grace in like those moments, I think.
100%. And I think for those out there that are listening or watching that do struggle with food in any capacity, take it from an addict alcoholic. I believe, for me, in my soul, my challenges and struggles around food were much more difficult and are much more difficult to manage than not drinking or doing drugs again, because I still have to eat.
Yes.
Right? I don't ever have to drink or do drugs again to survive. Mm-hmm. But to survive, I have to eat. And so it's honestly crazy. It'd be like telling an alcoholic or a drug addict, like, hey, I still need you to drink 3 beers a day. That's it, though. And smoke just a little bit of pot and maybe do a little bit of cocaine, right? But don't do any more.
Yeah.
Right? That would be pretty bad. I'm just telling you.
Yeah.
Like, where it's like, it wouldn't, that's not how that would go for most people like me. So it's really difficult with food because it's every single meal you have to eat, and then you have to make those decisions and you have to face whatever the challenge is. And then you do it every single day for the rest of your life. And it's funny because I don't even know if this qualifies, and I haven't been too close to the disordered eating world, but I wonder if it's considered like a relapse, right? Like,
yeah,
in the same way, because if it is, like, I've relapsed once a week for the past 4 years on food.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's because it's so difficult to make that decision every single day, multiple times a day.
Yeah.
So I don't understand it fully. Like, for example, your struggle, I just understand mine, but I can understand fully how it would be difficult.
Yeah. So
when you start diving into this, you said 50 foods. Maybe that's too many, but we'll call it 50.
Yeah.
For easy number purposes. Yeah. That seems like a lot to take in, right?
Yeah, I was a new person. That first semester of college, just like eating new foods every day, like I was like, wow, am I Olivia? Like, who is this new person? And like telling my parents about it, they were like, what have you done with our daughter? Mm-hmm. Like, you're not the person you were for 18 years of your life.
Right.
And it was like a slow process. Like, I remember it took me 2 to 3 months to finally like green beans. And now they're like my favorite vegetable. But I was just like, you're doing this for future you. Like, you just gotta keep pushing. And like you said, food is 24/7 every single day for the rest of your life. And I was like, you can't escape it. Like, there's nowhere to hide, and you just gotta keep pushing. But yeah, I worked very closely, and I still do, with like the Texas nutritionist and like behavioral health there, and just like working through these like new experiences. And like, I was like, I don't know what foods to try. Like, you know what I like, you know the textures of most foods. Can you like point me in a direction? Because I was like, I don't know what it tastes like. I don't know what the texture is. Like, And I was just trying to like different foods and not from like a performance perspective. I was just trying to be a normal human being. And then once I got, I don't want to say good at that, but once I got more food and like that I liked, I started being like just more like, okay, I like this, this, and this, but I should start eating more of this because it'll help me do X, Y, and Z. And it was such a process. And like, I still do it now. Like I'm still trying different things. Like I started drinking coffee for the first time this year and like just experimenting with that. And like 18-year-old Olivia Bray would be like, who are you? Like, what are you doing over there? But it was a slow process and it still is, but it's good.
Yeah. The other thing, and this might be a little personal, but I'm going to ask it. Was there digestive challenges, like adding new foods in that you hadn't eaten? Did your stomach say like, whoa?
I don't know if it would be like the food or my anxiety.
Ooh, okay.
Of just like before treatment, like even the thought of like trying something else, I would get sick to my stomach. And like I would just work myself up. But once I like after treatment, I was just kind of like, I would introduce like very small doses at a time and then just try and like eat a little bit more each time. So it was like a very slow introduction to my gut, which I think helped. So yeah, before treatment, yes, but I think that was mainly just anxiety.
That's good. I was curious about that because there are different diets you can go on to kind of reset the body's processes. Whole30's one, which is just whole foods, nothing processed. And then you slowly add things back in and see how your body sort of reacts. So I was curious. It's like, okay, from 6 to 18, you ate pizza and rice. You throw in green beans. Like, what does that do? You know?
Yeah.
I was just curious, but let's talk about that first post because I think we're about right there in the timeline of things. So when you said like what, and what I'm talking about is she made a vulnerable post about what she was kind of dealing with, what she was struggling with. But my first question about that is what prompted that? Like what made you say, you know what, like I'm going to share this with everybody.
Yeah, I think like in treatment, like I cried every day, every single day. And I just felt so alone, even though I was surrounded by people. And I was just like, this isn't how you're supposed to live life. Like you're not supposed to feel alone all the time. You're not supposed to feel like you have to do everything by yourself. Like, and I just kind of wanted to share it and just be like, you're not alone. Like if you need help, like you can ask for help. Like it is the bravest thing to do to ask for help. And I think that was like the scariest part, like admitting I needed help and then being like, okay, I can't do this on my own. Who can I ask for help? And then like explaining it to them. Like I remember explaining to my parents, like, I want to go to a treatment center, and just, I like kept to myself growing up. Like they obviously knew I was a picky eater, but just doing that like on my own and explaining that was like the scariest part. And I just wanted to be like, hello world, like this is okay to be like struggling with something and then also like wanting to get better and like wanting to ask for help. And like just there are so many people that feel alone, but a lot of people struggle with various things. And like I just wanted to open up and be like, it's okay to do that.
Yeah, it's wild to me that one, I think it's a gift to have the awareness to understand that if you're struggling with it, like somebody else out there is. Somebody. Mm-hmm. I think that that's a gift because there are certain things that I've struggled with that I felt that way about. But then, and we'll get into other mental health things in a little bit, but there's other things that I've been through that I felt totally alone in, and it didn't click over to like somebody else has got to be going through this. So one, to have that awareness is special, but I think it's wildly brave I mean, I don't even think that word encapsulates it completely for me, to say you have so much opportunity in front of you, right? Like a big opportunity. And to say like, you technically were okay with like risking what that might look like in order for other people to not feel alone. Like that is wildly brave. That takes a different form of human, takes a different level of leadership. And I think that separates you from so many people. Just that willingness to say like, hey, if this impacts my dream, that's okay, as long as it helps somebody.
Yeah.
So kudos to you for that, because I can tell you right now at that age, I wasn't there. You know what I mean? I wasn't willing to put myself out there in order to help other people. And so I think that's just incredibly beautiful. What was the feedback like from that post?
So positive. Like a lot of people it was basically just like, you're so brave. Like I didn't know you were going through this. Like I just kind of like disappeared for like a month and didn't really tell anybody until after. And it was crazy to like kind of get that kind of feedback, because I was in my own little world before. Like I just did my own thing, kept my head down, didn't really talk to anyone else. And then just having that kind of like unconditional support from like family, friends, and then kind of like people I didn't know. It was incredible. And then also other people were like, I appreciate you doing this, because I have been a picky eater. Like I didn't know about ARFID. Like I'm going to look into it and like see like if I can get better. And just like having people relate to it was kind of incredible. And I didn't have any expectations going into it. I was like, I'm posting this, I don't know what's going to happen, but here we go, like full send. And it was awesome.
Yeah, it sounds like, and the one thing I can relate to in that I didn't do till much later in life, but like that moment of like, okay, the caption's typed, the photo's there, all I gotta do is hit share. But that's a big moment for people when you do that, because you're like, okay, you kind of have to let go of whatever comes after that.
Yeah.
It could be positive, it could be negative, it could be a million different things, but the intent behind it, I think, is what matters most. Mm-hmm. And similar to you, I didn't have expectations when I did it. My whole thought process was like, I feel called that this is going to help one person. And if it helps one person to not have to go to the depths that I went to get to this point, I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to be of service in that way. And so I don't think a lot of people look at those things and understand that piece of it, but it is an important piece of it. So I can remember for me, like right before I hit share, I'm like, oh, here we go.
Yeah.
You know? And then I remember I put my phone down. Like I didn't want to see the response for a while. And then I remember like peeking, like looking at it barely, and then being like, the same thing. Oh my gosh, I had no idea. I didn't know that was going on. You know, I'm glad you're doing better. Or, you know, and then the other side of like, hey, I'm actually struggling, or my husband's struggling, or my grandson's struggling. And then it just starts to connect all these people that were isolated. And I think that's the whole point. So food will always be ongoing on some level.
Yes.
And that I can deeply relate with. The next thing to kind of transition into is you start your swimming career, but while that's happening, it is COVID. Like things are online, right? And so you're still somewhat isolated in a big city.
Yeah.
Right? Like Texas, I mean, how many students are at UT? Is it 40,000, 50,000?
A lot.
Ridiculous amount.
Yeah.
And it's not like everyone's engaging and interacting and spending time together. It's not like the party scene exists. Like everything's kind of quiet. And I know that to be true too, because I moved back here like late summer, early fall of 2020. And I remember like all day long being able to walk down South Lamar, South Congress, or by the Capitol, and there was like nobody out. Like it was desolate. And that was a wild experience for me. So I can only imagine what that must have been like for you too. Would you say that it was that isolation or that time kind of started that transition into some of the other mental health struggles, or would you say that was at bay at that point?
It was probably at bay. My freshman year, since it was COVID, like I only saw the juniors and seniors on the team like at practice. Like we weren't allowed to hang out with anyone else besides our roommate, and just kind of like feeling a little bit trapped. But I was so excited to be in college. Like I was like, heck yeah, like I'm just having fun, even though it was like COVID fun.
Yeah.
But I was just so like ecstatic to be like on my own and just existing with this like kind of like new, I don't want to say new life, but like a new life. Like I had a new perspective on life. Like I was finally eating and just like having fun and like enjoying swimming again. So it wasn't as like dark as it could have been. Mm-hmm. Like my freshman year, I was just like a little like happy-go-lucky little freshman, which is like not normally like me. So it was a different time for me.
Got it. And then, okay, so freshman year, is it fair to say all these new experiences kind of kept a lot of the demons away, right? Because there was always something happening.
Yeah, I did forget this, but I also started having panic attacks my freshman year.
Okay.
Whenever I would swim the 200 butterfly. Like the first time I swam in college, I had a panic attack, and just like after that, just it wiped me, which that was my best second or first best event. And like, I had never really had panic attacks before then. But I think I had a lot of prior demons from like pre-college swimming and like fear-based motivation, and nothing like that at Texas. But I had those types of demons. Like I had mainly like swimming demons my freshman year.
Performance demons.
Yeah.
If you don't mind me asking, how does a panic attack show up for you?
I just would like, I couldn't breathe. Like my chest would tighten, and I would just like freeze. Mm-hmm. Like I would just like couldn't move. Like I would just start crying. And it was continuous that whole year whenever I would have to swim the 200 fly.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. I think that's also a tough thing to kind of talk about, is what those things or those moments feel like, because it can elicit that feeling again. But it's important because there are people out there listening or watching that are like, well, they don't even know they're having a panic attack.
Yeah.
Right? They just know something's wrong, like something really bad's happening. And it can feel like, you hear stories all the time, it can feel like a legit heart attack, like you're dying. Like, and I've certainly convinced myself of that a few times. Like, I'm dying right now.
Yeah.
And then it just gets worse, obviously, because as you have that inner dialogue of death, or like it's, death is looming, then your anxiety just heightens, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. And so to pull yourself out of that's incredibly difficult. I couldn't imagine having to pull myself out of that while in the water. Yeah. Right. Which is a whole different level.
Yeah.
And we can get into like the dangers of swimming at some point during this conversation, because I think it's become kind of relevant because of what happened at the CrossFit Games a few weeks back. I don't know if you saw that. The first event, these are elite athletes.
Yeah.
Right? To get to the CrossFit Games, you have to be a very elite athlete in all capacities. And I think there's like 5 things they kind of base that fitness on. And it's, you need to be able to run, you need to be able to swim, you need to be able to bike, you need to be able to basically move a bar, like weightlifting in all different dynamics, and then gymnastics, right? So they're all fairly elite athletes. They can do all those things at a high level. But one of the guys that was competing drowned.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like in the first event. So it was in Dallas this year, Fort Worth. And the first event, I don't know the exact details of distances, but there was a run that led into a swim. And everything seemed to be good, right? But the last 100 meters or so of the swim, you can see someone flailing in the water. And then you see like no one do anything, essentially. You see bystanders try to jump in, but like the people there that were watching the event kind of didn't do anything. They didn't pull them out till like an hour after. And it's like, you wonder what was going through that guy's head.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I don't think you can be the most elite at anything and something can go wrong. And I think that, you know, because you see jokes all the time, like, what do you need lifeguards for at the Olympics?
Yeah.
Right. Well, when they're pushing, you guys are pushing yourself to a level of exertion that, like, you could technically go out at any point. Mm-hmm. Right? You could pass out or black out from pushing that hard. And it's the same as like when someone does a 100-meter sprint or a 400-meter. Like, they could go out at any point. Most of the time you don't, but like, it's possible.
Yeah.
And so I think that for me, it's important to highlight the actual dangers of swimming, because it's not like you're in there just like casually aerobically cruising around. Like, you're leaving it all out there. And also there's the risk of drowning because you're in the water. So I think that for me, that the reason I say all that is because I couldn't imagine having a panic attack and then also having to face those things at the same time.
Yeah, when I do have like a panic attack swimming, like I'm going to drown, because when I'm swimming and having one, like my legs go numb. I can't move them, and like I'm just swimming upper body. And I'm like, but I'm also thinking like I'm going to die. Like, just panicking, like this is too much, like I don't want it, like I want to disappear. And then the panic is like, you're gonna die, you're just gonna like, you're not gonna finish. Mm-hmm. And so there is like, I think like that aspect as well, like the dangers of swimming. And sometimes, this is a really light comment, I think, but whenever at practice we're like doing something hard, sometimes I'm just like floating through the water, doing weird motions, trying not to drown for like an audience. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, what? Like, how do people come up with these things?
Yeah.
But yeah, like having a panic attack while swimming, I've had a couple, and it's life or death. That's at least what I think about. But yeah.
Yeah, and I think from a physiological perspective, it's interesting too, because when you have a panic attack, your heart rate increases, right? Your respiratory rate increases, which doesn't help you in the water.
No.
Right? That just makes it worse. And so, yeah, I was just curious about that. Once that started happening, was there like immediate, like solution-based things happening where you like, okay, I'm gonna talk to the mental health professionals here at the University of Texas? Or was that a normal conversation amongst coaches and athletes? Like, hey, if you need help, there's resources, there's people. Was that early on kind of happening?
Yeah, the coaches are definitely like pro like behavioral health. Like we have such great resources at UT, thankfully, and like our coaches push that. I met with my therapist and nutritionist before I even got to Texas. Like,
it's incredible.
They were kind of like, you're a little messed up there.
Yeah.
And I was like, I agree. So I kind of wanted to get like a base before I even got there, because I knew it was going to be a big transition. And then once my panic attacks started happening, we just kind of like focused on that and just like tried to build up tools, but none of it worked. For a while, I just continued having panic attacks, and like I had some at the national competition. Like, I finished prelims of the 2 fly, had a panic attack. Like, I'm sitting behind the blocks with a towel over my face crying, and then they're live streaming it, and my parents are like, I just went to my phone after and I got texts from them. They're like, "Are you okay? Like, the live stream is still going. You're just like sitting on the deck, like crying." And I'm like, "Oh, that's really awesome." And it would happen like every time I swam it. And then like probably about the next year, I would still have them. They would be a little bit less intense because I found ways that would help. Like I started like pacing back and forth behind the blocks, just trying to like calm down. I'd do deep breaths. I would just like rehearse my like race plan in my head and out loud, just like trying to forget about the pain. And then I didn't swim that event for 2 years. I didn't swim it end of my sophomore year at NCAA's to a month before NCAA's my senior year. Like I just didn't swim it. We were like, let's take a break. Like, let's just take a breather. Nothing really seems to be working out. And we lost our backstroker, so I switched to backstroke and didn't really do any butterfly that year just because I think I was comparing myself a lot because I came in to the program like I would have had the team record by a second and a half, and then like my teammates were passing me and I wasn't able to get a best time in it, and I was just like, I can't do this anymore. Like it's affecting me in every aspect. So I just like completely stopped doing butterfly. And then my senior year, I was so scared to swim it again. I was like, it has been 2 years. I don't know how to do this. Like just kind of panicking, but I was like, I have so many tools in my belt. Like I can do this. Like I'm a much different person than I was, and I have a much better handle on my like anxiety, specifically like my performance anxiety. And I like did a little pace behind the blocks, and then I ended up like I think I dropped half a second. It was like the best time I had since my freshman year, and I was at like a time barrier. I had been like 152 for like 4 or 5 years, and I finally went like 151, and I was like, whew, we're good.
Yeah.
And just like, and that was like the first time I swam it in college without having a panic attack.
Wow.
And it was just like so low key. I had no expectations. I had my race plan, and I just swam it. And I was like just swimming a little bit more free. And like, I think taking that break and just like focusing on something else was like so healthy for me. And so I met at NCAA's and like didn't panic either time, and like won a best time again, and just like being able to like see the growth that I had. Even though it wasn't the place or time that I wanted, I was just like, wow, freshman year Olivia would have like kicked herself in the face like that. It was just incredible seeing like the difference when you work on something that hard and that long, and just being like, oh, it's like the result that you have been wanting for a while.
Yeah, it's interesting almost when you let that go, what can happen. And that looks different for a lot of different things. For me, my panic attacks, really the only time they show up is like at the airport, right before I get on a plane. I still have them. Yeah. I'm like, am I really doing this today? Am I really going to put myself, that's my biggest fear, is flying.
Yeah.
I do it all the time, but it terrifies me. It's pretty irrational.
I don't think so.
But I know, but based on facts and other people, they're like, well, you know, like
I have a pre-plane like routine.
Oh, I didn't even know this about you.
Not a lot, but like I have to touch the outside of the plane when I walk on.
Okay.
It's like superstition.
Yeah.
And whenever there's turbulence, I like hold on. I'm like, I'm gonna die.
Yep.
Like it's just out of your control.
Yeah.
And you're just flying through the air. It's so scary.
So I think I didn't know that about you, because I recorded a whole podcast on fear of flying.
Yeah.
On my own fear of flying, because I've dealt with it and I still deal with it.
Yeah.
But in a very similar fashion, it's like, can I just drive? Is that really necessary for me to do this? And then anytime there's anything like a noise or a bump or I can hear something, and I know what it is now, but somebody like dropped their cell phone.
Oof.
And that's really loud on a plane. It's like, boom.
Yeah.
And you're like, what was that? You know, did we hit a bird? Are we going down in the Hudson? Yeah. Right? Like that plane did. So I was like, all those things, I have the same anxiety around flying. It's like, it's terrifying for me. But if you want to do certain things, you got to get on the plane.
Yeah.
My worst experience actually flying was going to the bowl game my senior year. I got off the plane on the tarmac and drove from Ohio to Alabama to the bowl game because of an anxiety attack, a panic attack. I literally lost my marbles on the tarmac and was like, I can't do it.
Yeah.
And got off the plane and drove.
Whew.
And I'll never forget, so Kent it's Northeast Ohio. Columbus, where Ohio State's at, it's like hour and 45, 2 hours, 15 from there. But I'll never forget, I was driving through Columbus. I'd left Kent, driving through Columbus, and my teammates called me. And they were like, man, just checking on you. We just landed.
Whew.
And I had 16 hours left of driving.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, should have stayed on that plane. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I had to have that experience to know that, hey, there's a real problem here. Like something needs to be worked through. So I get the panic attack thing, and it's also unique to know that we have that same connection around fear of flying. So anxiety was at the forefront of the mental health stuff. Like that's what you would say you dealt with that the most in early college years.
Yeah, I feel like I've always had anxiety. Like I remember my senior year of high school, like I would have to walk into the building with someone I knew. Mm-hmm. Like I would like wait in the car for like 30 minutes until someone I knew was like, yep, I'm here. And I'd walk in. But definitely the anxiety was pretty bad freshman, sophomore year of college.
Would you classify yourself as an introvert or an extrovert?
Introvert.
I had a feeling that was going to be your answer. Yeah. I'm the same way.
Yeah.
Which I think shocks a lot of people. But like I can show up. I can show up for this conversation, and we can have this conversation. It's wonderful, and I love talking through all these things. But like I can't, when I leave here, I just want to go be with my dog.
Yeah.
And kind of be away from everything and disconnect for a little bit, because I have to do that to recharge.
Yes.
Some people recharge in social settings. I don't. I feel like I'm just giving energy away, and it's not because of anyone else. It's just how I'm wired. And so I kind of thought that I might have picked up on that from you a little bit too.
Yeah.
And so I think that it's interesting though, the thing about walking in with somebody, I can relate to that too. And so you're totally not alone in that. I can't tell you how many times I've went somewhere. I've actually left before. I've actually went somewhere and waited for someone that I knew to like enter a place, and they didn't show up. And I've been like, you know what? I don't really need to be here anyway. And like left. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or I've went to restaurants and sat down, and I've been really excited to be there. And then I sit down and I'm like, something feels off. I'm leaving.
Yeah.
And just get up and go. And it's interesting though that there's so many little quirks about all of us that I think if everyone was open and honest about it, like I think we should all have to wear t-shirts around that say, I'm introverted, I suffer from anxiety.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a former alcoholic or addict. I'm also a former athlete, you know, all these different things. I think the world would be a better place because people would know that everyone that you come in contact with is dealing with something. Mm-hmm. And the more it looks like they're not, the more they are.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what's so shocking about, you know, when you come out with your story, because they're like, what? Like, she's elite. She's an elite level swimmer, elite level athlete, going to go to an elite program. She's struggling with something. It catches so many people off guard. And I think that in those moments, it's important that the biggest thing to highlight is everyone is struggling.
Yeah.
But it takes a very special person to say outwardly, I'm struggling, so you don't have to alone.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I just think that's so cool. But so we've talked about the anxiety side. Where does that transition, right? Like, is it the balance of anxiety and depression? Is there both at the same time for you ever, or is it kind of like just one or the other?
Yeah, I feel like I wouldn't say I was like depressed growing up, but I was probably like middle school, I was like not like the happy go lucky like girl. When I was younger, I was like so extroverted. My mom would call me animated. Like I was out there. And then like as I grew up, like I just started becoming more and more introverted and like glass like half empty, kind of like very like pessimistic like mindset. And just I also think I put on a great mask for everyone, like even myself. Like I now like being vulnerable to like everyone, kind of like I'm very open like with my coaches and like the staff at UT, and like sometimes I wonder, I'm like, am I like struggling more now because I don't have that mask and I'm like trying to like push through things that I put off for a couple years. So I feel like that's like an interesting kind of concept to like think about. And then after, I'm trying to like think of what year, the middle of my sophomore year of college, I like stopped taking hormonal like medication, and then I feel like shit hit the fan. Like mentally, I was like, wow, I am not well anymore. And like things just started like going downhill. Like I like stopped the medicine cold turkey because that's what they told me to do. And I was like, yeah, I don't think that should have been the right way to do it. Like I had been on it for 6 years, something like that, like a long time. And then things just started to spiral. Like that summer, like I took like a 3-week break in the middle of the summer because I was like, I'm so unhappy. Like I just don't want to be swimming anymore. Like I just want to like be at home in my bed, like curled up. And then that my start of my junior year, like started dealing with like suicidal like thoughts, and started seeing the psychiatrist, and was put on like antidepressants that are supposed to help with like depression, anxiety, OCD, and like eating disorders a little bit. And that just made me worse. That made me like more suicidal. I was like, guys, I don't think this one's the right one for me.
Yeah.
This is also the time that I injured my foot for the first time, in dealing with like the first injury of my entire life, and like being in a boot and like not able to do everything that my teammates are doing, or like that I used to be able to do. And so like the circumstances were just kind of like piling on a little bit. And then that just, swimming became my outlet my junior year. Like I didn't have the anxiety around butterfly anymore because I wasn't swimming it. And I was swimming like, I don't want to say new events, but like different events that I had never really focused on, and was just like dropping time like flies. And I was like, wow, this is so awesome. Like I'm having so much fun. Swimming is just like an outlet that I can like work through my emotions with. And then even though I was like struggling, like it was so sad. I had my best like academic year, like got more A's than I ever had both semesters. I had scored the most points that I had at NCAAs. Like I got 3rd, 5th, and 7th in, and I swam 2 events that I had never swam before. And just like swimming was fun, but everything else sucked. And then I took a 3-week break after NCs for my foot, and just to like mentally reset. And I just spiraled a little bit. Like I was drinking multiple times a week. Like I was like, I don't have to swim. Like I just got to show up for school like 4 days a week, and like I can do whatever I want. Not purposely, but I started like restricting a little bit and started losing weight. And I was at the weight that I was pre-college, which was a little scary. And then I started, the therapist and nutritionist that I was working with still was like, have you thought of like outpatient for like your depression? Like it was pretty bad. I started like self-harming and like spiraling a little bit. And I was like, yeah, I should probably do something about this, because 1 hour of therapy a week is like, it's not working for me. Like I need a little bit more support. And so I did intensive outpatient therapy for 2-3 months, something like that, which was 9 hours of group therapy a week online and 1 hour of therapy with my therapist within the program, and then another hour of therapy with my therapist through UT, just to like check in. And I love it. It was so fun. Like it was hard, but the environment was awesome. I was very intrigued by the like work they were doing, and the different like exercises and like homework that I had. Like it made me think and really like got my wheels turning to be like, oh, like I don't have to live like this anymore. And just like, it was a different approach to therapy than I had seen before. And I just really enjoyed that. I also stopped swimming as much. Instead of 9 swims and 3 lifts a week, I was at 5 swims and 2 lifts and swimming faster than I ever did with less swimming, which doesn't make sense to swimmers or like other athletes. Like usually more is better.
Right.
And that summer I dropped time in every single event I swam and it was great. And I think I did so well because I was working on myself and just like enjoying the grind, not just like swimming, but like the mental grind of like just trying to like make yourself better. And so I ended that right before the start of my senior year. And like, that was like kind of like a big wake up call and like it was a good transition to like go into my senior year and just like, I wasn't sure if I was going to do a 5th year. So I was like, this could be my last year swimming. Like, what do I want to do? Who do I want to be when I'm done with swimming, I guess? Like I started to separate myself and stop identifying as, oh, I'm Olivia the swimmer and now I'm like, I'm Olivia, I swim, but that's like not who I am. And while I still like deal with the depression and like the anxiety, it is not as bad because that summer I gained like so many tools to just like exist and like be happy, and I've been able to like share them with like people who need help and like reach out to me. I'm like, I am not a professional, but like this works for me in this situation, like and just kind of like be a little bit more stable in my life emotionally. And like I have so much like respect for like people who do like the in or outpatient. Like it took all week for me. Like 12 hours of therapy is no joke, and definitely like depletes you, even though it's not like physical work. But it's life changing. Like I wish I could be in it like all the time. Like I just had so much fun, like, and I learned so much. And it was just such a like good environment. But that is the like extra step I needed to kind of deal with my depression and like suicidal thoughts and like self-harm. Like I needed extra support in that moment. And I'm like very grateful to like everyone who kind of like pushed me to do it and like supported me during that time. And like, it can be really scary, like starting something like that. Like it's called intense, like outpatient. Like that's kind of not a fun word. Like it can be a lot, but I think it's just so brave to like put yourself in that position and like give yourself the space and energy to like work through your demons and like come out better on the other side.
Yeah. I think it's incredible. I think that there's a lot in that too. One of the things that keeps coming up in different conversations that I've been having is the conversations around antidepressants.
Yeah.
And people have asked me for my opinion on it. I don't have an opinion on them because I've never been on them.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit scared of them. Given my background and history, like I'm kind of like, I'm hesitant to really take anything from a doctor. And I've seen, for me, I was fortunate enough to never really dive into the opiate game, but I had a lot of teammates who did, and they were prescribed it. And that ended in, heroin overdose.
Yeah.
And so since then, and because of that, I'm hesitant around a lot of like doctors and what they prescribe and how that all works together as far as financially. It's never really felt quite right to me. Mm-hmm. But I've talked to a lot of people and they ask about antidepressants because, if you want them, you can go get them. You can go to a doctor today and say, hey, I'm feeling sad, feeling lethargic. I don't really want to leave my bed, my house, and I don't want to talk to anyone. And like the first thing that a lot of these doctors are going to do or offer is say, hey, take this.
Yeah. This
will help. What's interesting around is I do think they might help some people, right? I think there's some people that they really help. I have started to do a little bit more research into what happens chemically within the body on antidepressants.
Yeah.
Because I think that's important to understand what it's doing. But there's also people they don't work for. And I've had that conversation like you just brought up, like it made it worse.
Yeah, I actually just started my 4th one like 2 weeks ago because I just haven't found one that like works for me, and like a part of me wants to go back on the oral medication that I was on years ago, but another part of me is like, this sounds not great, but I'm like, I should be enough on my own. Like, why can't I just be happy like without medication? And it's like, some people love them and they are so happy with them, and I'm like, wow, you've made like great progress.
Yeah.
And then like other people, like it, like you said, like it's like hit or miss. And
it's case by case.
Yeah.
And I think that's people ask for my opinion on it. That's my answer. It's case by case. I don't think it's one size fits all for anything. Because we're all different in some way, some form, some fashion. We all have different experiences, traumas. Okay, I suffer from depression. You suffer from depression. But what triggers that, elicits that, or brings that up within us could be totally different. It could be environmental. It could be, our own internal stress or dialogue. There's so many things that can create it. I think it's so hard to say, hey, this pill fixes it. Yeah. And so, one, kudos to you for continuing the journey to try to figure it out. And that thing that you just said resonates with me of like, why can't I just be enough?
Yeah.
Like, why can't I just be enough? When I find myself in that place, though, and I get to that headspace probably once a week for different reasons, not just depression related. But for me, when that shows up, it's more, I realize that I'm comparing myself to someone else's, like what I think someone else is living.
Yeah.
Right? Versus trying to work on what I'm dealing with. Like I'll see someone happy at a park and I'll be like, that must be nice. That looks like fun.
Yeah.
Why am I upset at the park? You know what I mean? And then I'll spiral quick, playing the compare game. So something that's helped me is when I have those moments to say, okay, I need to stop for a second and just think about what's happening. Like I'm here right now, everything's okay, but what's going on?
Yeah.
So I've gotten therapies saved my life on numerous occasions in different ways, not just from a suicidal perspective, but other perspectives. And I think it took me a long time. This is kind of crazy, but like for some people's experiences, it takes them a long time to say, hey, I was an alcoholic, or I am an alcoholic, or I am or was a drug addict. The hardest thing for me to ever say was the word suicide. Like because I grew up with this mindset of like, if you do it, you're selfish. If you contemplate it, you're selfish, right? And then next thing I know, I'm dealing with this.
Yeah.
I'm feeling this. I'm having those thoughts. And it's like, okay, well, I am that now. That's a hard thing to maneuver and work around. And then to be high performing on top of that is a totally different level of tax, right? Like it's not like you're living a very normal life. The demands that are on you are massive. And then you're also performing all of those duties and things with this thing in the back of your head that doesn't really leave.
Yeah.
Because you might escape, right? In the pool, you can escape for that amount of time. But it's wild. And this is my experience. I don't know if you can relate. Running was that for me. When I first started running, it was my escape. And so I just had to run more and more and more and more, because what I found was like I would feel really good right after, but man, like 5 minutes later, I'm right back mentally in that same dark place. And it's like, dang, like I can't get away from this. And so I can relate to you saying your escape was swimming, and outside of that, though, everything else sucked.
Yeah.
I feel that in my core. And I still have days to this day that are like that. I don't want to talk to anyone. I don't want to do any of the things or use any of the tools that I've been given.
Yeah.
I just want to, this sounds bad, but like I just want to suffer in that darkness.
Yeah. It's like a comfort.
Yeah.
Like you were, like my coaches and like therapists are like, you were in that like dark space for like years. And I take comfort in it. Unfortunately, I love it.
Yeah.
And it's when I get back in and like have those days, I'm like, oh, this is horrible. But I almost want to say like content, because it's just like comfortable. Like it's known. Mm-hmm. So I relate to you on that.
Yeah. I think the unknown is the most terrifying thing.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't know how to be happy. Like it's just like a weird like place, and it feels like fleeting sometimes. So it's like it's so weird.
Where it's showed up for me in the last 4 years, especially in kind of giving me some clarity for myself, is if things are too good, whether that's friendship, relationships on a romantic level, professionally, athletically, anything, I naturally have a tendency to be like, this is too good. Let me get back over here where it's not so good. And I'll like, maybe self-sabotage is the right word.
Yeah.
To put myself back in that place because of exactly what you said. I know it.
Yeah. Is it like you want to take yourself back instead of something else taking you back? I
want control.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. I think that's how I am.
Yeah.
That's how people describe it. And I'm like, oh, that's, yep.
Yeah.
Right on the head.
Yeah, because it'll hurt less if I can put myself there and not be forced there.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's cost me in a lot of ways, right? Because not everyone in the world's out to hurt you.
Yes.
Not everyone in the world's out to make your life miserable. But for someone who's been through certain things, like that's a hard thing to convince me of. How can I really trust that person? Mm-hmm. I know I can trust myself, right? To an extent. Yes. And I think that part of me is like, do I want to trust myself or this person? And that's been hard for me. It's been hard for me to figure out. And I think that, people are like, Tripp, you're 34. When are you going to get married? And I'm like, that involves a lot of trust.
Yeah.
And I know I have stuff to work through there. But I think it's all rooted back to childhood, to other things, to other experiences. Like it's all intertwined. Mm-hmm. But it shows up for me that way. And then also within the depression thing, the first time I was ever deeply depressed, I didn't know it was depression. Like I didn't know, like, hey, this is what this is.
Yeah.
But I can tell you what that experience was like, and it looked like me not opening the blinds for like 3 months. Like I went to work, came home, blinds were shut, didn't want to look outside, didn't want to deal with anyone, didn't want to talk to anyone. Came off as abrasive. That's how I would describe myself. Like if someone tried to get close or communicate with me, it was like, I was almost rude.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want that interaction. And the other things that I noticed is like I didn't want to keep my house clean.
Yeah.
Like that was a big one for me. It was like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. I'll vacuum tomorrow. Yeah. I'll clean the dishes tomorrow. I'll do this tomorrow. That stacked for a month, 2 months, 3 months. And it's like, oh, this isn't good. So that first experience, though, I didn't know what it was. And then after doing some work around it and understanding it, that's the thing I want to share with people is like, again, with this, it doesn't stop. but you have awareness that it's happening, and you have the tools, hopefully, to maybe make it better.
Yeah.
Like that's what it looks like. And for me, at least, and I think that it's important for people to realize you haven't failed if you become depressed again after going to therapy.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I would say it happens more than not.
Yeah.
But the point of therapy isn't to remove all of your depression. It's to give you tools to function better in that depression.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think that it's important for people to kind of go into it with that approach. But around that whole topic, that led into another post, correct?
Yeah. So that was the summer before my senior year, and then still kind of struggling, but like much better. And then, so I ended that like end of July, and then August is like a suicide awareness month, I think. And I meant to post something, like I literally created it, had the picture, had the caption, just needed to press share, but I kept like pushing it off. I was like, oh, I should wait till I'm better. Like, it just doesn't feel right to be doing that. And then I was like, Olivia, just bite the bullet. Like, you're going to be vulnerable. You're going to be honest. Like, I think social media is a lot of like, this is my life. Like, everything's perfect. I'm so happy. And I'm like, that is just like not accurate to like, for most people. Right. And so like beginning of September, just like hit the share button, and it was just like, I think I talked about my junior year and like having like the most successful athletic and academic year that I've had, but like having the most demons that I've had in a while. And just like, I wanted to show that like you can be struggling in one aspect, but also like be thriving, and like to like check on people who are doing well. Like, I was able to put on a face for most people, the people that knew me best, and like were asking, they were like, oh crap, like she is not doing well, and would like check on me. But like to the outside world, like I was on cloud 9, like swimming well, academically doing well, like just thriving per se. And I got good like comments about that, but like someone important to me was like, are you sure you should be like sharing stuff when you're not doing well? Like, you're still like not good. And I was like, that's like kind of the point of it, to like, I can go through something and like at the other end, I'm not going to be like, I'm cured, like IOP saved me. Like it did save me in some aspects, but I'm still going to like have things I struggle with, but I gained the tools, like you said, like it gave me the awareness and tools to like not self-harm anymore, and like just be able to deal with them on it just helped me be able to deal with them in a healthy way, instead of like self-sabotaging, and just find things that like worked for me. And so that was like another like big post that I have, and like just very like vulnerable, and like but yeah,
I can say in connection to that, it's very difficult sometimes to receive feedback from people who you know care about you and you care about them, but they question it. And I think here's what I'll say about it. Anytime you do a post like that, I know for sure that people are reaching out in your DMs or commenting, and they're thanking you. And that's what keeps me coming back, because I know it's helping at least one person. I always say that a lot, and I don't want to get that twisted or misconstrued. People are like, Trip, you're going to help more than one person. Okay, great. That's wonderful. But if I wake up every day with the intentionality to help one person, that's what keeps me going.
Yeah.
And to me, I would, like, if you feel shame around me being open, honest, and vulnerable about what I'm dealing with, it sounds a lot like a you problem, not a lot like a me problem. And I think that that's important to recognize. If you're out there and you're trying to help people, and that's what you feel like is your purpose, then so be it. Like, there's nothing more important. But understand with that is going to come every now and then that type of like, what?
Yeah.
Like, why would you do that? I had a conversation this past week, actually, with someone I really care about around the podcast as a whole. And full transparency, like, we don't make money here. This isn't a money-making machine. It costs money.
Yeah.
And that's okay. I'm glad, right? I'm glad that it takes effort and commitment and finances and all these things in order to pursue a purpose. I'm glad it isn't free. But I was sharing that with someone. They had asked specifically, they wanted to know cost, and I'd shared it with them, what the cost looks like on a rough scale. There's no true known number. And the phone went silent. And silence for me, in a lot of scenarios, if it's people that I know, like I understand that their silence means judgment, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that for everyone. I'm not trying to generalize and say, hey, if I'm silent, I'm judging. But for this specific conversation, I knew what that silence meant because of how long I've known this person. And so I asked, I'm like, you don't like that, huh? Like, why does that bother you? Well, I just had no idea. That seems like a lot. Like, I didn't know. And I said, you know what? Here's the best way I can explain it to you. It keeps me alive. It helps me sleep at night. It helps me stay sober. It helps me feel connected. So whatever that cost is, I'm going to pay it because I refuse to go back to where I was at. There's still tough days all the time, but they're not like they were. Like, that's what pops up for me.
Yeah.
So keep posting. I say all that to tell you, keep posting, because you always got a fan here. Yes, keep going, keep going, keep going. And even when it gets hard, know that you're doing it for a greater purpose. Like, you're not doing it to celebrate yourself. You're doing it for that connection piece, for someone else out there to know that they're not alone. And how much it's crazy to me, because the people, you're not just connecting with swimmers, right? Or D1 athletes. But can you imagine being not a D1 athlete and you see a D1 athlete with all these accolades come out and say, hey, I'm struggling. What a connection, right? You just given the most massive gift. Like, well, wow, if she can struggle with that, like, no wonder I'm struggling. You know, it's a beautiful thing. So definitely, from my seat, don't ever back off on that. What's also interesting about this conversation, and we don't have a ton of time left, but I want to make sure we talk about this because it is cool. The last time you were here there was a couple things that one thing hadn't happened yet, and another thing wasn't decided yet.
Yes.
So part one, let's talk about what hadn't happened yet. The Olympics were coming. Mm-hmm. And we, during that conversation, had talked about a specific Olympian that bowed out of the Olympics 4 years ago or 3 years ago, whatever it was, COVID year weirdness, due to mental health, right? And how much judgment she received around that. And I think it's so funny to me because I was so fired up for this year's Olympics because I knew. I was like, no, if she's coming back, she's done the work. Yeah. And she's going to kill. Well, they walked out with a gold medal, right? And I was so fired up over that, not because of the gold medal, but the redemption to say, hey, yes, I struggled with this. And yes, I continue to work through it. But look what you can do. And so for me, that was a powerful thing. But I also wanted to know from your seat, so something we haven't talked a lot about is you've been to the Olympic trials. Mm-hmm. Twice? Three times. Is it a fun experience for you to watch the Olympics, or is it like, damn, I wish I was there? Like, what is that like for you?
Definitely fun. Like, I knew I wasn't going to be close this year. Like in 2021 Olympic trials, I was in the finals and like finished 7th in one of my events and made semis in another event. And like maybe a couple years ago, I was like, oh, like maybe I could have a shot at making 2024. Like it'll be right after my senior year of college. Like I'm going to be so good to go, and just like everything that's happened. And then like I re-injured my foot last year, and then just swimming didn't become a priority, or like lost its priority. And so I just wasn't training, and like, don't want to say misbehaving, but I was not prioritizing and doing the things that a D1 athlete should be doing. Mm-hmm. And so like this year I went to trials for fun. I went to trials to try. I went to trials to support my friends, and just also like to compete. Like it's fun. It's the first time I was in a football stadium. Like that was freaking insane.
That's cool.
Yeah. And like I also got to see like my whole family. And so like watching this year's trials, I was like, yeah, I wish I was there, but like I knew going into it that I didn't have a shot. And like but I also knew people that was there. Like she's a sophomore now at Texas, but she swam individually, so she swam on a relay, she got a silver medal. Like it was so awesome to like have a relationship with people that are competing at the Olympics.
Yeah.
Like I was just like in awe every day, just like watching it, being like, oh my God, like I know her. Like I know like what work she had to do to like put in, and just like seeing that paid off is just freaking incredible to like see and like just kind of like experience it.
Yeah, I think what's incredibly noteworthy here is if you finish 7th in a final, right? That means and for people listening that maybe don't have the awareness of it, that means you were 7th in this country, right? For that specific event. Yes.
So you do like prelims with however many people qualified. In 2021, it was like 120. So after prelims, 16 make semis, and then 8 make finals. Mm-hmm. And then top 2 go to represent the U.S.
Got it. That's incredible. Right. So it's not like you're just, it's a little bit different than my story, right? Because you're not just on the team, right? You're a 20-time All-American. We don't want to forget that. And Big 12 champ.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like those aren't small things. But I know the connection you're talking about because I had a couple of teammates in college go to the NFL, win Super Bowls. One of them got a Super Bowl MVP.
Wow.
And it was just so amazing to me to be like, wow, like we weren't the same athlete, right, at all. But like we're on the field at practice at the same time, mm-hmm. right? Or like these different things. And it's such a unique, crazy thing to connect with. And so I'm glad that you can see it from that lens. Like after the Olympics, so this is going to transition into my next question. Did the Olympics have anything to do with you making a decision on your 5th year, or was it separate?
Separate.
Okay.
Yeah, I had been debating a 5th year for a while. I went into my senior year last year. Like, I had a rough fall. Like, I was getting really bad, like chronic leg fatigue for the first time in my life, and just dealing with like other health issues. And then I re-injured my foot in October, and I was like, my body wants me to be done. Like I have given it my all. Like I am so tired and just, I'm ready to move on. Like I'm so excited for a job, and like, I know what I want to do. Like there are things that I haven't experienced yet that I want to. And then like coaches are like, do you maybe want to do a 5th year? Like it could be really fun. And so I was like, heck yeah, like you guys want me to. I like swimming, like, and I want another shot to do better than I was doing that year. Like and then I think that also like pushed me to not prioritize swimming as much and just kind of have it like go to the back burner and just like float through the year and just like do whatever I wanted. Cause I was like, oh, I have another year of this. Like, I don't have to appreciate what's going on. And like, I regret that so much. And then like, I was swimming really bad. Like, I just wasn't having as much fun, and like NCs and like Big 12s hit, and had like Big 12s was like the worst meet I've ever had here. I was just like, wow, I am not myself. This is not the way I want to swim. My foot, I like did something else to it in January. Got like tendonitis and like swelling in my foot now, and I was like, wow, this is just so fun. And I was like, I'm done. Like, I don't want to do it anymore. Like, I'm so tired. And so in like March, I was like, just make it to trials. Like, you can make it a couple more months. Like, and most people will be done at trials. Like, it's not going to be weird if you don't do a 5th year. And just started like prioritizing swimming less and less. I was like, it's summer. I'm free. Like, I just want to like do other stuff that like swimmers and D1 athletes aren't like, that they sacrifice. And I was like, I don't want to sacrifice anymore. And we had like our first long course meet of the season, and I'm just like crying to my coach, and I'm like, a part of me just doesn't want to go to trials. I just want to get my foot surgery. I just want to be done. Like, this isn't who I am. This isn't working for me. Like, I can't do it anymore. And I almost didn't go to trials. There was like a week I was going to get surgery. I wasn't going to trials and prep for the 5th year. And then talking to my therapist, she was like, she was just like, think through this. Like, do not make a decision in the heat of emotions. Like, you told your coach that when you added 8 seconds in like one of your best events. Like, take a deep breath. Like, don't regret something that you're gonna do. And so I like Uno reversed that decision, and I was like, I'm gonna get surgery the week after trials. Like, I'm gonna like get my shit together within a month, and just, I know it's not gonna be pretty. I know I'm not gonna swim that great, but like, I'm gonna try. And also I was like, I don't want to do a 5th year anymore. Like, I'm not having that like rinky-dink swim meet be the last meet of my career. Like, I'm going to go out with a bang at Olympic trials in a football stadium with thousands of people watching. And even like after trials, I was like, I'm not coming back. Like, I'm done. And then I was like, I spent so much time like journaling and making pros and cons lists and like talking to like my family and my friends. And like, I was like, eventually I like became torn. I was like 50-50, like I can flip a coin and that's going to be what I do. And I met with someone who did a 5th year at Texas and didn't swim the way that they wanted to. And I was like, do you regret doing a 5th year? Like, I know it wasn't what you wanted. And she was like, no, like, I met so many people, like, I tried, I did my best, like, and then that got me thinking, and I was like, I can't live with the what ifs. Like, I want to get back to being able to grind like an athlete. Like, I haven't worked hard swimming wise since the beginning of my junior year. Like, that's like 2 years away, and I was like, this is not who I am. Like, I wasn't going to believe that I gave up if I didn't do a 5th year. I was like, because I'm ready to move on. I can be content with trials being my last meet. Like, I have other things that I am looking forward to after swimming, which not a lot of people have. Like, I had separated myself from my identity from swimming, but I was like, no, like, I haven't had a healthy foot in 2 years. I haven't given myself a shot to swim fast in 2 years. Like, I want to go out with a bang. Like, I want to be legendary. Like, I want to see what I can do, and like, I want to win a national title. Like, I got second my freshman year. This past year, I got third. Like, I can do something special if I put my mind to it and I put my body into it. And like, I am terrified. I'm like, oh, March is far away and I am already tired, but I wanted to give myself the opportunity. And like, I think that is like special. And I love like pushing myself to new limits and like seeing what I can do. And I haven't done that in a while. And it's going to take a lot of learning and being really uncomfortable to like get back to that space. But I had to try. I'm like, I need to go back to who I am at my core. And like, just, I can't not give myself the opportunity to do something special. And now that I have 4 screws in my foot and hopefully I'm on the mend.
Yeah.
Like, I love Texas and I love everything about what they're doing. And like, they want to be great at what they do. They want to be legends. And like, I want to be a legend. Like, I keep saying it, like the opportunity, I'm not wasting something. I have the rest of my life to like get a job and like work and like, but am I ever going to have this opportunity to compete for the University of Texas at a high level? No, like I had to try.
I love that answer. I was crossing my fingers when you were here last time. I was like, man, I hope she goes back. But I didn't say that obviously for, make your own decision. What's really cool, and here's how I think of what you just said, and this is like what resonates with me the most about what you said is, what if, right? When you said that, I get that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of what ifs, and I don't live well with what ifs. Like it's by nature hard for me. So I resonate with that. But what came to mind for me is like 2 things. What if in your 5th year, there's an incoming freshman who's struggling and you can help her?
Yeah.
Right? Like, what if? Well, you don't know if you don't come back. And what if all of these things had to happen? Like, you had to go through all of this adversity, whether that's around food, anxiety, depression, isolation and COVID, all of this stuff. Like, what if all of that had to happen your foot in order for you to actually be the best swimmer you can be? Because now you have these tools. So you've never had the opportunity to be as good as you can be as you are right now.
Yeah.
As if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, this could be the greatest opportunity. And that doesn't have to necessarily tie to a gold medal or what, you know what I mean? It can mean a lot of different things, but it's truly inspiring. And selfishly, I'm pumped because I'm like, I'm coming to watch swimming this year. I'm so stoked. Because I've never been to a swim meet. Right. Yeah. And like, I saw it at trials this year though, like in Indy.
Yeah.
At the football stadium. And I was like, that was awesome.
Yeah. Texas, we make it big. We make it fun.
Cool. Well, I'm going to be there. And I'm so excited to not just follow your swimming journey, but what you do afterwards. And the amount of lives that you impact, because I don't think that part of your story's even remotely close to over. I think that's always just going to be kind of tied to who you are in a lot of ways. And so I'm excited to stay connected through that too. And I deeply appreciate you coming back and sharing all those things vulnerably. It means the world to me, and I know it's going to mean the world to people and help them so much. So thank you.
Yeah.
Quick question though. I noticed you have a Terry Black's cup.
Oh, yep.
So did you barbecue today?
No, not today.
Okay.
I was cat sitting last night and I forgot my water bottle, but I went to Black's for dinner. So that's my water bottle until I go home.
I had to ask because we talked about the food thing.
Yes.
If you guys come to Austin, ever, the line might be long. They don't sponsor this show in any form or fashion, but Terry Black's,
so good,
off the chain.
Yeah.
So I think what an interesting way to end the show. on barbecue.
Oh, so good.
Yeah, that's great. All right. Well, that's going to do it for today, I think. I appreciate you coming back. We'll definitely be in touch. And that's gonna wrap it for today's episode of the Ain't Dead Yet podcast. So thank you guys for listening and watching, and we'll see you on the next one.